So that's where we bring you in, Chris, here, not only to tell us a little bit about this military base, but what this investigation may look like moving forward.
So the military base, I've actually been down there. I did pre-deployment training before going overseas to Iraq and Afghanistan there. It's an operational base. It houses the 3rd Infantry Division and the 1st U.S. Army Ranger Battalion, part of the 75th Ranger Regiment. So part of Joint Special Operations Command. So very active base, probably very fortuitous because all the individuals in these line units have either seen combat or they're being trained to go. So treating the wounded, drastically different than our event last week. These are people who are trained in combat casualty care. So I think probably your first immediate response was probably very effective. The investigation will be a combination of Army Criminal Investigative Division and the FBI. The FBI actually has authority on U.S. military bases because they're federal property, and they'll bring resources that will aid Army CID. Army CID is incredibly capable. I've worked with them. However, they're just not that big. So the FBI from the Atlanta Field Office will surge resources there, evidence response teams, technical exploitation, social media. They'll also assist in obtaining search warrants for residences or properties outside of the base, and they'll assist in the investigation. But the FBI is very experienced in working in tandem with organizations and has a very close relationship with the U.S. military.
And what do you make of Tom's reporting that there seems to have been a bit of a time lapse in the time that the suspect maybe opened fire and the time he was apprehended? What do you make of the situation that may have been unfolding on a base like this?
Yeah, so they rehearse these security protocols. They'll go to an immediate lockdown, which looks like it happened. They'll activate an emergency response team, which are trained to kind of modern SWAT standards, for lack of a better term. It's their military police that are trained to respond. This comes in wake of shootings like Fort Hood, like Pensacola, which were directed attacks by terrorist organizations. It remains to be seen what this is, but the military stepped up their security protocols and their response to incidents like this. The FBI has actually trained a lot of these units to be kind of FBI SWAT standards. So very capable. I'm not surprised that they were able to respond, but it remains to be seen how he was apprehended and how they finally secured him.
And Tom, I know we've mentioned that the FBI has been involved here. Do you know if other agencies are able to respond to a military base like this one, ATF, others?
Yeah, I mean, certainly ATF can help out in some of the components of the investigation that you would normally involve the ATF in, for sure. But this is federal, to Chris's point, it's federal property. And so it was going to be federal law enforcement agencies that are engaged here, with a slight bit of an asterisk. If this person has a prior criminal history or background, and if it's helpful to interact with local law enforcement to get more detail about this person, well, then obviously that'll occur. But as far as the actual investigation and the way it's going to be conducted, it's going to be by federal agencies.
And I think a lot of people may be asking out there, are these military personnel allowed to carry firearms on the base? Is that something that we would see?
It is not something you would see, and it's keeping live ammunition and live weapons off base is a priority. You do not, it's each military base, especially infantry units and the Rangers, they have these massive arsenals in their armories. You never want to introduce live ammunition into that environment. So there is a strict protocol to prohibit personal weapons from coming on base. If you live on base and you own a weapon, then it's got to be secured, and each different command has different ways of doing that. But no, you would never want to have that.
I know you mentioned some of the layers of protocols that may be in place, but can you just expand on what kind of training these military members may get before they are on a base like this, and just how shocking it is when something actually transpires like this?
Yeah, so it's absolutely shocking because they never expect it in their own backyards. Certainly for people who've traveled over to active combat environments, this is your safe place coming home. And this is where, for many family members, they live on this base as well. So it's really disconcerting for them. All of these members of 3rd Infantry Division, depending on what their specialty is, they go to infantry school after basic training. There's also an armor component to this division, so they'll learn how to drive Bradley fighting vehicles or other light armored vehicles. There's also an aviation element here because it's Hunter Army Airfield as well. And then the Rangers are part of the 75th Ranger Regiment. This is a elite raid force, part of Joint Special Operations Command, and they are some of the best special operators in the world at conducting raids. I've worked very closely with them over the years. They're younger for members of the special operations community, but highly trained, highly motivated, and again, not something they would expect to see in their own backyard.
Trained, of course, for the theater of war and not necessarily right there on their own base. And we're just getting word that we may get a press conference at about 3:30, so in about an hour and a half from now. Of course, we'll keep our eye on that. Any idea, Tom, about where these servicemen and women may have been on the base? Any idea where they might have been gathering, if they were together, if this happened across a wide swath of territory there?
Sure. We actually have the specific building, and you'll forgive me because I have not been on base there, and so I want to make sure that I have it. It's the 2nd ABCT complex is where this initial shooting was called out to. So that's the information that we have from the military as far as how big the area is that's going to be under investigation. And excuse me, and how far this may have gone, that's just not clear yet. And that might be one of the things we get an update about coming up here in the next hour and a half.
And I know you said there's going to be limited information until we at least hear in the next hour and a half. But typically, when you're looking at an active shooter situation and the investigation, what are authorities looking into as far as the background of the shooter and potentially why he targeted, or he or she may have targeted, those victims?
Sure. So just to give everybody a heads up as far as like what happened here in New York City a week ago, within 2 hours of that shooting occurring, that individual had, and we showed images of, his wallet. And so that the face on him matched the face on the wallet. They will then go back and see if there's any other identifying information. That information then goes to whoever is doing the investigation. They'll immediately run that person's name through a host of databases, come up with all sorts of background information. Where are they from? Do they have a firearms license? Are they currently under investigation? Has there been a lead in the past where they were brought to the attention of either local law enforcement or the FBI as far as a possible somebody that should be looked into for whatever type of threat? So that information all comes up, and then they start to look into the firearm information. They look at somebody's travel history out of the country. Have they come back in? Do they have anything suspicious in their background or past on that? And then obviously in this day and age, it surprises nobody. You certainly don't have to have somebody with Chris's background or pedigree to tell you that they're going to do a deep dive on social media and see if there's anything there that immediately sticks out. We've seen a number of incidents over the past several years where individuals have posted things online as far as a potential motivation. We saw, just as we saw last week here in New York City, sometimes they leave a note behind or writings behind. We've seen that a lot over the past year, 18 months, as far as people leaving behind. I'm thinking of the Minnesota shooting that involved state lawmakers, a number of other incidents that we've had. And then I think increasingly you're going to see subpoenas being sent to AI companies if there's an indication that the individuals have been using AI. We've seen AIs used at least on several occasions this year already for people that were trying to get assistance in making explosives. So those are things that we've talked about before. Those are all the types of things that investigators will look at. Needless to say, the phones and devices will be looked at as well. And so all of that will occur here to try to figure out a why. Now, they say that this individual is in custody. And of course, this individual may be talking as well. But you still need to corroborate that information and find out where this person got the gun.
So, Chris, we're just now learning from Deputy FBI Director Don Bongino that the FBI is, in fact, responding to this. As former FBI yourself, what does that look like?
So first of all, the special agent in charge of the Atlanta field office is Paul Brown. I know him really well. Terrific leader, consummate professional, very experienced in counterterrorism and in crisis response. So he's a great person in position to assist. He's also very collaborative. So that's what the FBI does really well, partners with other law enforcement agencies around the country and around the world. So any resource that's needed, the FBI will surge there. The FBI has really the world's leading evidence response teams. They'll be responding. If there is need for special agent bomb technicians, bomb squads, they'll send those to different locations. If this individual had a residence off base or a storage facility, they'll go search there with extreme caution in partnership with the local bomb squad, who they already have established contacts with. They'll bring in likely behavioral analysis unit to get to the motivation behind this. Was this a grievance? Was he a soldier, worked on the base? Was this a grievance against his command? Is it somebody who came from off base? Why did they come? How did they get access? Is this terrorism? Is there a reason that this person was doing this intentionally? So they'll assist with all of that. And then additionally, the social media exploitation. The FBI has surged tons of resources into that in recent years. And they'll also take any computers, phones, or anything and exploit them, send them up to the FBI lab as a priority if that's needed as well.